Welcome to Chapter 5. We're going to be working on creating a template. The first thing before we even start I need you to do is go and open up your Lorem Ipsum text, and you just want to be on this page, the original page that has the headings. We're going to use those. And then because I have a variety of different images, I've opened up 3 color minds so that using 3 different images so that I can get sense of the colors that I can use on my website, and you will need to do the same thing. I uploaded 3 out of the 4 of my kitty images, and you'll have to do the same thing as well. Okay, once you have those open, then you're going to need to open up a new document. This is actually going to be our template. So this is actually going to be a website page. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to save this. So I'm going to go to File, Save As, and then I'm going to look for my responsive page. When I open this up, I should see my kitty photo gallery and my social media gallery. This one here I'm going to save as a template. The first thing I'm going to do is put an exclamation point in and then type in template.html. Now what the exclamation mark does, it will move that template to the top of all the documents so you don't have to search for it as you begin to create your various pages. The template you're going to use to set up your main page, and then you modify those pages or you modify your template as you create new pages so you get a similar look, but on the actual site itself you can make some adjustments on how you set up your text. So I'm going to click Save, and the first thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to ask you to do this and then you can check mine out. You want to set up your doc type, put in a note that has your name, and then Chapter 5 responsive, that'd be RESPONSIVE design, because now we're moving into responsive design, which means that we have to consider how our websites will look on all devices, whether they're the computer, a laptop, a phone, or a tablet. So now we have to start looking at that. Then you're going to put in your HTML language tag. You're going to put in your head tag with your title. You're also going to put in your tag or your image tag for the browser tab so that you have an image that shows up on your tab. That's that link relationship shortcut icon. You'll need your meta character set, your meta name title. You also need a meta name description. Now, since this is going to be a live website, you need to take time with your content to make sure you explain what your website is about. That means you'll have more than just a short sentence or a phrase, and I will show you that here in a moment. And then you're going to put in your meta robot tag, close out your head tag, put in your body tag, opening and closing body tag, and you are not going to put anything in there yet, and then you're closing HTML. So what you're doing is actually setting up that basic shell. So I need you to stop the video at this point and go ahead and open up a new document, save it as a template. Don't forget to put your exclamation point in at the beginning, .html. And then you are going to type in your shell with all the information I just gave you. When you come back, I will show you how you should have had your page set up, and you can do a comparison. So please stop the video at this point so that you can set up your page. Welcome back. So I would like you to do a comparison of your 2 pages. Right now you should have your basic shell, your doc type, your name, your HTML language tag, your head tag. Our title is going to be responsive template web page. We want to make sure that we identify this as a template. Then we have our link for our shortcut. You won't have this yet, so let me take that out. You will have your meta tag, all 3 or 4 of your meta tags. Then you should have your head, your opening closing body, and then you should have closed out your HTML tag. So make sure you've done that and then go ahead and save it. And if you run it, what you're going to see is nothing. And I have to go get my image. So my image is not connecting up. So I'm going to go in here and I have to go back and get my image from my responsive web page. And what I did was when you name everything, make sure you're pretty clear on your images. So I called this my tab image so that I know when I'm looking at my images what one I use for my tab, right? And I didn't do that because I was just on time that you wouldn't have to sit through and do that. All right, so now if I run this, my tab does appear here at the top. So I've got my nothing on my page, which is exactly what you should have, nothing, right? And that's good. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to go to Ipsilon and we're going to grab 2 paragraphs. I'm going to grab these first 2 and I'm going to copy those, Control C. I'm going to come back to my web page and I'm going to tab in and I'm going to paste those in and then I'm going to tab those in because I want to, again, be very careful on setting up your pages. Everything looks pretty smooth. So if I save this now and I go ahead and run it again, I should have text that appears on my page. And there I go. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do my HTML coding. I want my what is Ipsilon, that is going to be an H1 tag. So I'm going to put my opening and closing H1 tag. I need to set up both of my I don't know which way is faster. And then now I'm going to have to set up my paragraph tags. So I get a look of a website. And these are basic things that you should already know how to do. So after viewing this, you can just do this yourself. I assume that you know how to set this up now. So now I have all my spacing correct. I have my headings in and my paragraph. And if I save this and I go ahead and run it, I now have my pages set up the way I need them set up. So now I have some text on there. Eventually that text will have to be changed to actual information regarding the website. But for our template, we don't need that because on each of the pages you create in your website, you're going to have different text. So Ipsilon, what it does, it allows you to create your actual setup of your pages with text. So you don't have to do that for every page that you do. Right now, the next thing is we're going to be using external style sheets rather than the internal. The internal ones are great, but there is, it's easier doing our external. It keeps everything nice and neat and you don't get lost and you don't lose your website because your coding will actually be in a different document. So the first thing we're going to do is after our shortcut link, we're going to put in another link. And in the past, we have always set up our style HTML tag with a type. We're going to do the same thing here, except we're linking. So we're going to type in type equals and then text/CSS. That shouldn't be new. What's new is that instead of using the style tag, you're using a link tag. And then we have to create a relationship, which means that we have to type in REL, and then we are going to call it style sheet. So the browser will know that the relationship between the type is a style sheet. Then we have to connect it or link it. And what we're going to call this page, we're going to call it main main.css. And we'll close that out. Now you notice that this is not an HTML page, but a CSS page. The most common mistake when you set up your links is to make your hyperreference main.html. If that happens, then it won't work. So you have to tell it it's going to be a CSS page. Then we're going to save that. Now, it's not going to link to anything right now because we don't have an external document. So what I want you to do now is you're going to go up and open up a new page. And then we're going to resave this page as main.css. And then make sure that you're in your responsive page. If I look here, notice that my template with that exclamation point has moved that template up to the top. Normally, it lists everything alphabetically. So normally this template would be listed at the bottom. But because of that exclamation point, it will always be listed first. So now we have our file name called main.css, and we're going to save it. And then if we go to our open button, we are now going to see a main.css, and notice the icon looks a little bit different. That's the difference between an HTML and a CSS. So what we've done is we are linking our template right here to all the CSS coding that we're going to do in our main.css. Now, the next step that we're going to do is we're going to set up a container tag. Now, we haven't done this before, but now we're interested in making sure that we have a template that will be consistent for all of our web pages, so that when people go into our web pages, if they click on our internal pages, that they all are set up the same, so they know that they are still at the same website. So the template allows you to make all your pages look the same, even though the information, most of the information on the page will be different. So we're going to go to our body tag, hit enter twice. And I am not going to indent this one. Rather, I am going to type in the information for my container tag, and I'm going to use a div tag. I'm going to use an ID selector, and I'm going to call it container. So there, after my body tag, I now have a special ID selector called container, and then I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom, and right above my body tag, I'm up against the wall, I am going to close out the div tag for my container. So what you're going to see here, so if I select this div tag, you're going to see that it relates to this div tag up here. Now, as you create your web pages, as you have learned, you might be using some div tags inside your sections. Well, if that's the case, you have to make sure this div container always has its closing div tag. So everything is going to go between my div container and my closing div tag. That we have not done before. We have not been concerned about that, but now we need to be concerned about setting up a container that actually will be consistent on our pages. So I'm going to save that, and if I go and run it, you notice you're not seeing any difference between the two. And that's good, because largely what's saying us is that we have not done any CS coding for this div container. So we're going to do that now. So now we need to click on our main CSS, and we're going to put in our div container tag. And if you remember, our ID div tags always start with a number sign. So we are going to start with a number sign. We're going to call it container. And then we're going to put in our curly brackets. We are going to make the width of our container 960 pixels. Now, because I'm going to eventually make this responsive, We're not doing that yet, but eventually we're going to make this responsive. We want everything to be consistent. So I am not, spacing does matter when you're doing responsive web design. So I am not going to put in a space after my colon. Now, if you do, that's okay. But whatever you do, be consistent. Either you have a space or you don't have a space. I find it easier just not to have a space. Now, if you want a space, that's fine. We're going to put in our margin because our container needs a margin, and it is going to be 0 pixel auto. What this is going to do, this margin 0 pixel auto, is going to center the container onto the page. So when it opens up, the container will be centered. Let's put in a border so we can kind of see what's going on. And I have already looked up my colors, so if you're wondering why I'm typing them in, I've already done my research on my colors, so I am not going to waste time on your time trying to look up colors. So there's a color that I have, and then I am going to put in background color. And I'm going to, there we go. So now I have set up my container tag. Now, the whole width of the website is going to be 960 pixels. So I'm going to save this. A common error now will be that you're going to, instead of switching back to your template to run it, that you're going to click on your mean CSS. And if you do that, all you're going to do is get your CSS. All right, so you want to make sure you don't do that. What I do is I usually just, after I code, I just go back to the one that I have open and I just refresh or reload it. So now you can see that I have set up my container. It's centered on both sides. It has my title, my paragraphs, and it has my background color. And it also has a border. If you see going around here, there's a border. So it's responding the way I want. So that's telling me that my linking that I did up here is working. All right, so that's good. Now I want to create 2 columns for this website. I want to give it a special look. To do that, I'm going to go and find my container tag. This time, I am going to use the section. We've used sections before. So we're going to type in section. Sorry. And then we're going to make this a ID selector. And we're going to call it left dash column. And close it out. And then I'm going to go down. Notice that I indented this. I can take these as well and indent them over one more so I can see what's going on with my section. I need to close out that section tag. And there, now I have it closed out. I'm going to save it. And I'm going to go back to my website. I'm going to hit my reload. And nothing happens because we have not yet coded our ID left column, which is what we're going to have to do now. So let's go back to our main. Actually, if you need to stop, I should say this, I get carried away here. If you need to stop and set up your container tag, go ahead and do that. Pause the video and then come back in and set up your section. And then pause the video. So right now, if you did not pause the video to set up your container tag, because I forgot to tell you, then please do that now. And then come back. Now that you've come back, I want you to set up your section ID left column. And then we're going to code it. We want to call it left dash column because it's an ID selector. It has to match perfectly. Now we have to determine the size that we want our left column to be. We know that our total container is 960 pixels. So let's go and this is up to you what size you want, but we're going to set the width. I'm going to set the width to 700 pixels. And then I'm going to put in a background color. I'm going to, because that's a dark color, I'm also going to change my font color. Right now I'm going to change it to white, and I want it to float left. We're going to come back here and do some changes here, but right now, let's go and look and see what's going to happen. So I'm going to go back to my website. I'm going to click on reload, and you notice now, if I look up here, my container is still showing 960, but my left container, or my left column, is only 700. So if you need to stop the video, go ahead and stop the video at this point in time and finish out your left column. Welcome back to the video. Now we're going to look at doing our right column so we get a column side by side. So we are going to use a tag that we have not used before. After our section, we're going to type in aside, and we have been introduced to this, we just have not used it. We're going to set up an ID selector called right column. And then after you've gotten that set up, we are going to go back to Epsilon, and I want you to grab one more paragraph. And which paragraph you grab is up to you. I'm going to grab this one. I'm going to Control C it to copy it. I'm going to come back here. I'm going to paste it in. Tab that over. And we're going to code this side heading with an H3. All right, so we have that coded for H3. Aside usually is information that is not as important as what you would put in your left column. And you're going to see that because it's going to actually be a smaller column. Then we're going to add in our paragraph tags. We want to set that up as a paragraph. We're going to check to make sure our coding is all spaced correctly. And then I'm going to tab this over. The reason why I'm doing this is to show you that make sure that you have your opening and closing aside. Just like when we click on section, you're going to see that it'll connect up to section. You just want to make sure everything's closing out the way you want it. We're going to save this, and then we're going to run it. And so now you're going to see that it's trying to line itself up, but it's not working very well. So we need to go in and do some coding for our aside. So let's go to our main CSS. Now this one here is going to be right column, and hopefully all this will work out the way I want it to. Our width, we're going to take our total container is 960 pixels. If we subtract 700 from that, we're going to have a 260 pixel right container. We're going to do a background color because we want to distinguish right now. We want to distinguish our left column from our right. So the best way to do this is by color. So hopefully this will help you see the difference between the different colors. And so I'm going to put in, as I said before, I've already grabbed these colors, and then I'm going to float it left. And if all works well, it should work the way I want it to. I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to reload. Yep, there we go. Now you notice I have columns that match the container width. So if I take the 700 plus the 700 for the left column, 260 for the right column, I get a total of 960. Now what I don't like about this, if you notice, the text is sitting right on the wall of the columns, and we want to get that off. Now the catch here is I'm going to go in here where it has width, and I'm going to do a padding. I want to move the right and left side, so I'm going to do padding right. I'm going to put in 5 pixels. I'm going to do padding left 5 pixels. I want to do the same thing down here. Again, the padding size is up to you, but you should take them off the borders because otherwise it's too difficult for people to read your text. Now, there's going to be a problem. I'm going to save this. There's going to be a problem with this website. Once I do this, you notice now my left column is no longer alongside here, and there's a really easy explanation as to why it's changed. If I go, I have a total width of 960 pixels. Here, I have 700 plus 5 plus 5. That will give me a width of 710 pixels. Now we know that's a little bit too large. If I go down here, my right column, I have 260 plus 10, 5 pixel, 5 pixels. So that puts me at 270. So actually I have 910 plus 270. So that's why those two columns are not fitting. So the best way to fix this is take these 2 pixels, which is 10 pixels, and come up here and change my width to 690. So now I have 690 plus 5, 695 plus 5 gives me 700. Down here, if I change this to 250, I have 250 plus 255 plus 260. So now if I add these three and these three together, I am going to get 960 pixels. Now, if all my calculations are right, when I run this, nope, see, I did exactly what I told you not to do. It's a common mistake. Let's get out of this. If I reload this, yep, now we're back to where we need to be. If you look at the text is no longer sitting on the borders, so it's a little bit easier to read and follow. So the biggest catch here is to make sure that if you add padding, that your padding plus your widths equal the total container width. That's important. So now you have learned to set up your container tag, your left column, your right column. So now I suggest you stop your video, and I would like you to play around with your left and right columns. I think you need to code your right column yet, and then play around adding your padding in so that when you finish, your website is going to look something similar to this. Notice that we still have not added a banner and we have not added a footer. But this is as far as we've gotten, and we're getting this to run the way we want it. Good luck with finishing up your website. When you finish, go ahead and show me what you've got. Thanks for watching.